let's talk about the money. It's not cheap, you know. That extra year can range from $20,000 to $60,000. Some of us, we can't fathom doing another year. So we're like, we'll do it later. You know, and later may not ever come. Why would a person with a pharmacy doctorate be considering a master's in public health?
If you have a dual PharmD MPH, it opens up a lot of doors. It gives you an opportunity to wear a lot of hats, no pun intended. You can pursue a role in pharma, biotech, government agencies like the FDA, the CDC, but you want to pick something that will help you solve the problems you want to solve every day. Unless you allow it to add value to your career, your goals, what you want to do, it's just an add-on. Adding an MPH to your PharmD, it doesn't always immediately guarantee a higher salary, but this is what I will promise you.
Is it worth it? Is there a return on my investment? Welcome everyone who is joining us for today's conversation. I brought a guest back. When last time we met, we were in her beautiful home and we were talking about what she does every day in her big, nice job in pharma. She is a HEOR scientist. The unique thing about her path is she went through the dual degree of a PharmD MPH while she was in pharmacy school. So I had to bring her back so that she could talk about that, because that is a track that a lot of people are interested in and there's a lot of questions surrounding it. And if we're going to possibly extend more years of pharmacy school, we need to know what we're getting ourselves into, okay? So Ashley is going to talk to us all about the MPH program. Why do an MPH when you already have a pharmacy degree, and what that process looks like, and also how to be best prepared when you decide to apply. So without further ado, I introduce to you Dr. Ashley Saunders.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. It's exciting.
We had to bring you back because you did your thing on the last episode, okay? So let's get started and just going right in. We first need to understand the fundamentals. Why would a person with a pharmacy doctorate be considering a master's in public health?
If you are a pharmacist or a pharmacy student and you have that inclination to want to pursue a career goal or passion to do something outside the dispensing role, the more traditional pharmacy role, an MPH might be for you. Masters of Public Health, there's so many different concentrations and disciplines. And so if you see yourself kind of going beyond that dispensing role and you want to work with data, people, systems, an MPH is something that houses all of those different skill sets and disciplines. So I think that's something that, I'm excited to talk about and give people more insight on.
If you can just give us a quick little, review, Ashley, of who you are, all the credentials, all the 99 credentials that you have, and how you got to your MPH.
Sure. More degrees than a thermometer, they say. So my name is Ashley Saunders. I am an HEOR research scientist, as Dominique said. So just to give a quick blurb, I started off bachelor's of public health. I always knew I wanted to be in the medical field. So in college, went to the University of Georgia, fell in love with public health. I realized that I've always been a people person, wanted to represent my background for the people. So when I finished undergrad with the bachelor's in health promotion, went to UNC, Chapel Hill, where we met and did the PharmD degree. In my first year, that's when I was informed of the dual degree programs that UNC offered. And I saw that they offered an MPH and I was like, why not? So I did the MPH in health policy and management while doing the PharmD, graduated in 2020. And then in between that PharmD career was when I realized I wanted to transfer into industry, do non-traditional role. And so did a 2-year postdoc fellowship with within US HEOR with Rutgers University and Bristol Myers Squibb, a pharmaceutical company. And after that, they hired me full time. And so now I work as a US HEOR scientist at a different company, but I've been in that role for that field for at least 5+ years. So.
Yes, and give us the new title that you have recently worked your way to.
Associate Director, US HEOR lead for the early pipeline in cardiorenal metabolic diseases at Boehringer Ingelheim. So it's been July will be year 1 already. Can't believe it.
Now that we have those credentials out the way, she has confirmed that she is a reputable source to be giving us the tea. Can you go into some of the career paths that having both degrees opens up?
Absolutely. So if you have a dual PharmD MPH, it opens up a lot of doors. It gives you an opportunity to wear a lot of hats, no pun intended. And so you can pursue a role in pharma, biotech, managed care organizations, government agencies like the FDA, the CDC. You could do more like community-based level interventions, like with nonprofits and community-based programs. I mean, you can even consider academia in research on the academia side, global organizations as well, like the WHO. So it opens up so many doors. And again, it just depends on, you pick your poison. Do you want to work with systems, policy, people, data? You have a lot of options.
So with everything that you just said or have said already, who would this dual path be for? What is the ideal person that you see that would be a really good fit for the dual PharmD MPH?
I want to say ideal. I think, if you really want to pursue a career that, again, goes beyond the traditional dispensing role, and you have a mindset where you are thinking beyond the individual patient and you're thinking on more of like a population level. You want to you want to think more strategically, you want to think outcomes based, you want to work where you can drive this data decisions, or you want to change policies with data. You want to implement real world interventions in your community. Think of impact. Like if you have the goal to, I want to make a broader impact in healthcare, then an MPH is something that you definitely should consider.
Beautifully stated. Because even as a clinical pharmacist who did not want to do the traditional dispensing role, I personally really enjoy direct patient care. Right, I like to see that
Yep.
one-on-one impact, and so that may not doing the MPH, I may not be able to experience that as much because, as you said, MPH is more broad focus. You're still having that impact, but you're more outscaled from that. So something for them to consider. And we know that an MPH is just like a bubble name, but there's several different types of MPHs that they can pursue. So just saying you want to do an MPH is not enough. You need to know what kind of MPH that you want to get. So can you go through some of the MPH programs, and we'll focus more on the ones that would be relevant to a pharmacist.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've always said, especially having an MPH and a Master's of Science in HEOR, picking a concentration is, just because it sounds impressive, is not the way to go. Just to have an add-on is not what you want to do, but you want to pick something that will help you solve the problems you want to solve every day. And so that kind of helps you decide what discipline should I be pursuing or considering if I want to do a dual degree. The disciplines within MPH, again, depends on where you see yourself working, and where who you see yourself, what you see yourself working with. Right. I always go back to data, people, systems. So you have epidemiology. You have a concentration in epidemiology. So that's much more analytical, methodology focused. Things like surveillance and watching disease patterns. If you're focused on wanting to work with like impacting people and populations, you could do things like there's various concentrations in behavioral science or health behavior, health promotion. Those are kind of your more real world population health concentrations, right? Intervention, implementation, type of fields that focus on those spaces. If you want to work with policies and systems, then you can join me and do health policy and management, right? You can work on a broader scale where you can work in pharma or even government agencies, right? Biostats. If you like data, you're very analytical thinking, again, you have options. It just depends on where you want to have that impact and knowing what problems you want to solve and how you want to use your pharmacy and MPH degree.
Even going into that, there's more types or branches, buckets you want to consider. So if we hear the verbiage like a research-based MPH versus what will be the term, versus a practice-focused MPH, can you just give an example of how to apply that verbiage?
Yeah. So when you say research focused, you're probably thinking more of, again, study design. You're working with analytics. You're working with data. That's probably going to be your your biostat concentrations if you're considering a more research focused MPH. Your coursework will be more heavily in those adaptive methodologies, modeling, etc. That track will probably require you to do a thesis, publications, and things of that nature. More of a practice focused MPH will probably be more people focused, where you're doing intervention in program development, community-based interventions. You're working with populations, population level health, and that is your course work will probably be more heavily in those spaces: behavior science, health promotion, and then your coursework will probably require you to do like a practicum or internship. And I think those are probably the biggest two distinctions, depending on which direction you want to go.
Thank you. That was really good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go into another category. So we have virtual MPH programs and we also have in-person MPH programs. There's pros and cons of both, For those who might be thinking about doing it virtually, what might they want to consider versus if they were doing it in person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of spaces these days are considering virtual just because of the flexibility, honestly. I think of my already practicing pharmacists who are considering kind of taking a different direction with their clinical background and wanting to maybe pursue an MPH, but they're still working. They still got bills to pay, right? The online option gives you that flexibility to work and do the MPH online, after hours, etc. That's actually what I had to do while I was in the fellowship. When I was doing my other Masters of Science, during that 2-year program, I was taking classes after work while I was doing the fellowship. So it gives you that flexibility, and you also get this network. I guess it's kind of like, since you're not in person, they provide these resources and networks for folks who are doing it remotely. So that's also really helpful. Like, you're not kind of on this land by yourself, taking this program. So that would probably be the perk of online, that flexibility, especially for people who are working. And then in person, it's the in-person portion. So if you're doing a dual degree, the in-person is probably more likely, obviously. So you'll do your PharmD portion, then you'll switch over to your MPH portion, and it gives you that opportunity to have that best of both worlds academic process. But essentially, if you're doing the dual degree, it's a bit different than a standalone MPH program. So most standalone programs for a Master's of Public Health is like 2 years, 2+ years. But if you're doing it with your PharmD, it's likely we'll do it in 1 year. And a lot of times your pharmacy background and your credits will allow you to transfer a lot of that stuff to your Master's in Public Health program. So it gives you that flexibility to where you're not actually completing a full standalone MPH, because some of the courses and credits from your pharmacy degree will transfer over to your MPH. Hopefully that kind of gives some color to the nuances there. But again, online is great as well if you need that flexibility.
Right. Some of us, we can't fathom doing another year of pharmacy, not graduating, delaying that process. So we're like, we'll do it later, and later may not ever come. Or like you said, now when you do it later, you might have to take more time to get it done.
Absolutely.
But also on the other side, you might need a moment to stack up some money before you go back. And we'll talk about the financial considerations as well.
Okay.
But you gave so much insight on all the things that had to be considered. So what advice would you give on how someone needs to be sitting down and kind of going through all the things they have to consider? What questions should they be asking themselves to really narrow down the best type of program and method that they can go about getting their MPH?
Yeah. As you're considering MPH concentrations, you definitely want to, again, figure out, how do I want to use my PharmD degree and my MPH degree? What direction do I really want to go? And what problems do I want to solve? That's most important. What problems do I want to solve? What impact do I want to make? Do I want to impact policy decisions? Do I want to drive data decisions? Do I want to make a difference in my community, implementing community-based interventions, whether it be chronic disease programs or vaccine development and screenings, and, those things at a population level. Those are the questions that you need to ask yourself. And then it's like, okay, well, with that, what role or what space do I see myself in? Am I agile and adaptable to really working in non-traditional roles? Am I okay with working in pharma, biotech, big, large organizations, smaller organizations? Am I okay with shifting from the dispensing individual patient mindset to a broader population level impact? Those are all questions that you have to ask yourself in terms of where you want your career to go. Because just like an MPH, unless you use it for your good, unless you allow it to add value to your career, your goals, what you want to do, it's just an add-on. And so, like any strategy, unless you use it, it's not effective. It's null and void. So that is your biggest opportunity to figure out how you want to use this MPH.
Ashley, you mentioned earlier that you learned about dual degree being an option during your first year of pharmacy school, PY1. We just want to make sure that they're not, postponing or procrastinating answering those questions.
Yeah.
Different pharmacy schools will have different ways that they're intertwining that MPH into your PharmD experience. Can you talk a little bit about how you may know other examples of how that's been done elsewhere?
Yeah, for sure. I can't speak to every program and how they intertwine the dual degree, but I know for my experience at UNC, their criteria was, so when I found out about the dual degree program, I wanted to do the MPH. I, looked at all the concentrations, figured out what I wanted to do. I put my application in, I believe either my fall or spring year of my first year. And there was a different process for me because I was already in a graduate program. And so working out with, the faculty at the pharmacy program and the faculty at the public health program, we were able to come to an agreement that I would do my first 3 years of pharmacy school, all the didactic coursework for the pharmacy school year first. And then after that third year is completed, I will go to the public health school and do I believe it was 3 semesters. I had fall, spring, and summer semester of coursework at the public health school with my MPH concentration. Completed that. I was working on my thesis at the same time. I went back to pharmacy school and did my 4th year APPEs, IPPEs. So I was working on my thesis while I was doing my rotations in my 4th year. It is what it is, because what I wanted to do was not prolong any more time. I wanted everything to be done by the time I finished my 4th year pharmacy school.
And also applying to fellowship programs.
Yes, also narrowing down fellowship programs, applying to fellowship programs, preparing for interviews. So yeah, 4th year was it was a lot.
And other programs, I believe, sometimes they don't always do it that way. They have other ways that they will work that into their curriculum. Do you know of those ways? Like other ways they might do it?
I don't know specifically, but I do remember, now that we're talking about it, I think there was initially I could have started my MPH coursework earlier, but because of the way UNC did their white coat ceremony, remember, I think they did our white coat ceremony our 3rd year. Some programs do it your 1st year or a little sooner. I think something along the lines of I had to do the white coat ceremony with my class in order to be on time or something like that, which meant I had to do my first 3 years with the pharmacy program before going to the public health school. So depending on how the pharmacy school does their calendar and curriculum, always, figure out your particular pharmacy program and the public health program that's attached. You always can ask those questions, get that information, and figure out what your schedule would look like.
I don't think I knew that. So they basically looked at your schedule and worked with you to figure out what would be the best.
Yeah.
Did they communicate with the pharmacy school as well? Like, were both schools having a conversation to work together?
Absolutely. So my advisor from the public health program was speaking to our advisors at the pharmacy program, trying to figure out schedules. And I applied and got in way earlier than I started at the MPH program. So they were willing to allow me to start later, essentially, so I could do the first 3 years. So there could be some flexibility. There could be, again, alignment and collaboration with both schools. A lot of times, if these schools are offering dual degrees, they're aware of the nuances that's happening. This public health school is aware, okay, this is a 4-year program. We got to figure out how you could do this 2-3 semester program within your already professional school. So they're talking to each other, and there's that collaboration to make sure that you can complete, what you need to complete and get and graduate.
So let's talk about the academic reality.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you were studying, what those courses were, just so we can get an idea of how that differs?
Sure. So again, when you're doing the dual degree, you're literally, I don't want to say squeezing 2 years of an MPH into one, but that's probably the most gentlest way to say it. Some of the benefits of doing a dual degree is you don't have to take all the credits that a typical student would take if they were doing a separate MPH program. So that came to my benefit, where I didn't have to take all the courses that I would typically need, right? So in that first semester, you're really, and this is for all concentrations, you're really just tapping into what are the foundational courses that you need for a public health degree, right? So that's your introduction to public health and, healthcare issues and courses like that, right? And then so once you get those foundational public health courses that all the concentrations have to take, then you the second semester is more concentration focused. So for me, health policy and management, I took a lot of courses on healthcare reimbursement. I took courses on healthcare policy, understanding population health and issues around that. A lot of methodology courses. So it became more concentration focused within those 2 semesters. And you also have to do, I forget, you have to do an internship. So again, the benefit of having a dual degree. So remember, our 4th year in pharmacy school, we have our rotations. So my external rotation at the FDA, they counted that as my public health internship. So that was a huge benefit, because I can't imagine trying to find an internship in the middle of doing, monthly rotations as a pharmacy student. So again, that flexibility piece is there, and that benefit is there for the dual degrees.
It sounds like if you know you have to get an internship in a specific area and you haven't done all your rotations yet for pharmacy school, you can try to find or work with the school again to get one of your rotation blocks to also align and meet the credentials for the internship.
It's a possibility. Yeah, it's a possibility. And yeah, and then you do your thesis or your practicum, depending on what they require.
And real quick, what is a thesis?
It is essentially your final research paper, like your final research paper that you have to do prior to completing your graduate program. I consider it as the master's version of a dissertation. So you realize once you completed your PhD program, you have to do a dissertation and defend it. So the thesis is kind of equivalent to that, the master's program. Again, you can select your topic. Sometimes they select it for you. It's really up to what you want to write about. It could be a project. I know some of my classmates did, like, they had to go through the whole IRB process because they wanted to do a qualitative survey and interview people. That's a very long process. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want it to run into, again, extending the timeline. So I just did a paper. I'm very passionate about healthcare disparities. So I wrote a paper on I think at the time it was racial inequality on the opioid crisis, because this was like 2019, 2018, 2019. So that was still a big deal. So I wrote that was my thesis topic.
Okay, so you said the most gentle way to put it is squeezing in, a 2-year program into maybe not even a year, maybe not even full 12 months. If you're open to it, talking about the biggest challenges that you faced doing that, we want to, also give the realities of what to expect.
Honestly, I think going into it, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to have to do pharmacy stuff in addition to the MPH, but it really was 2 separate worlds. So as soon as I finished my 3rd year pharmacy program, it was like I was a master's of public health student. I was at the public health school. I was in class with the students. I did the extracurriculars with them. So it literally felt like I was a completely different graduate student. So I really appreciated the fact that the 2 worlds didn't collide and overwhelm me or overstimulate me that way. I think the biggest challenge was, I think, just the quick shift. So, being a pharmacy student, you're already a part of a professional program. You are obviously, capable of the academic rigor. You got that far. So clearly you're capable of withstanding a graduate program and doing the coursework and excelling in all the things. I think it was just opening my mind and my skill sets to a different level of thinking and knowledge, shift my brain to that and kind of figure out how to study and retain information and learn and apply that information that was a bit different from what I was, already embedded in. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge.
Did you have a little bit of trouble adjusting when you transitioned back into the pharmacy world, because you've been away from medications, clinical things, disease states for almost a year, and now it's like rotation time?
If I'm being completely honest, I think if I remember correctly, I had finished my summer semester and then we started rotations. And I think my first rotation was like an emergency medicine rotation. And I will say I struggled a little bit because I had to turn everything back on. I was like, oh shoot, okay, I gotta know, okay, what medications and how to round the patient, and just everything had to come back quickly. And so I think that was, if I'm being honest, that was a bit of a challenge. But again, you're in this, we're capable of having the academic rigor and taking in so much information, knowing how to apply it, and utilizing your skills to shift quickly, right, and adapt quickly. And so that helped. But I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit of a like shock, like, okay, we're back in this and we're hitting it, because no one else knows that I was just at a completely different school, completely different program. So I'm the only one that needs to like get on board, be prepared, be ready. So yeah, it definitely was a bit of a shock, but you get back into it, you get your groove back, and yeah.
Emergency medicine is hard for most people, even if you haven't had a break. God bless you.
Yeah,
I know that was
it was humbling.
because I was looking like, I was looking like the Krusty Krab meme on my internal rotation. Like, no. That's why I chose the ambulatory life. So let's talk about then how to position ourselves as a strong applicant. We're keeping in mind that this is relatively early in our pharmacy career, but do you remember what background that these programs were looking for when they were considering whether they would accept you in?
Yeah, so these programs, especially if you're a dual degree student, they realize like you're not going to be an expert. You're not going to have all the experiences as it relates to public health. I think the biggest thing for your application as a student is going to be your why, your connection to what connects your pharmacy degree to your public health interests and passions, and being able to have a polished articulation and understanding of why you want to merge those two fields. What impact do you want to make? What questions and problems do you want to solve? I think that's going to be the biggest one, where you see yourself working, as with the PharmD, but in also with an MPH, right? It's not always just about how much experience you have, but it's also like, have you been exposed to public health? Have you engaged with it at all? Have you volunteered in underserved communities? Have you worked with population or community level programs like vaccine programs or local screening events? Have you worked on projects around access or outcomes or population health, disparity work? All of those components really speak to, okay, this person has an understanding of public health. They have a passion, or they've engaged with it, and they can clearly speak to why they want to connect their pharmacy background with public health. I think those are going to be your biggest takeaways. Outside of that, I don't think it's fair to expect a student to be an expert otherwise.
I would assume a lot of the things that we had to consider and put on our application, our CV, resume, applying to pharmacy school are probably also important. Like if we've had research before, right?
Absolutely.
That would also help with the experience you're saying with working with people, populations, methodologies, all the things that translates over. If we were at the lab, even lab research. So the experiences that we made sure we were buffing up to get into pharmacy school probably are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting as well.
Absolutely.
With you being a competitive candidate for MPH. But it's nice to know that you don't have as much, weight to specifically have narrowed in on public health by that point.
Absolutely.
And your why is going to be what drives the rest of that.
Absolutely. And you make a great point. Yes, if you've done research, you've done other opportunities, projects that are transferable to your public health application, speak to it, add it to your resume, talk about it, and talk about the connection, the impact. That's going to be the icing on the cake, not just the what, but the why, and the what, and the so what.
Yeah, your interest came from somewhere, and it might have been from those experiences that are already on your resume.
Absolutely.
Or a course that you were taking.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about the coin, the money. Excuse me. I hope you don't mind if I cut in for a moment.
Hurry up.
Number 1, thank you for watching. I hope you're learning something new in this episode. Number 2, which is the reason I'm here, is if you don't mind, could you be so kind and like this video or hit the subscribe button?
I mean, I've always subscribed.
By subscribing, you're letting YouTube know that my content is providing you value, and that ultimately helps the channel grow and reach more people who need to hear these conversations. You can also subscribe to the Pharmacy Pathways newsletter to get access to exclusive episode content. Newsletters go out in the same week of the episode. You'll receive a structured summary of each interview, expanded guest bios, and exclusive sneak peeks of future episodes. Subscribe at pharmacypathways.org. Link is in the description. Oh, and one more thing.
Hurry up!
If there's a specific topic or career you'd like to see featured, you can let me know by filling out the audience feedback survey on my website. And if you'd like to be a guest, there's a guest sign-up form on my website as well. Both of those links are in the episode description. Okay, let's get you back to the show. So let's talk about the considerations of finances. Pharmacy school is a pretty penny, and now we are adding on an additional year of a graduate program. And when you and I both were looking into some of the numbers, it kind of range that extra year can range from $20,000 to $60,000. Tacking that on, and that can vary based on the program, the location, the name, the status, and the weight of the name behind the program. How did you approach this mentally when all right, I'm already taking on some student loans already? Is it worth it? Is there a return on my investment if I add on this additional year of a master's?
Yes, yes, to all the questions. It's worth it. It's I knew it was going to give me the ROI, return on investment, that I needed. I was looking for, not immediately, but eventually, right? So for me, I knew it was worth the extra time, extra resources, extra effort, extra money. Again, when you know your why, you know your impact, you know how you want to use these degrees, and you realize that, okay, there are benefits of doing the dual degree, right? I don't have to do the separate 2-year program. I can squeeze it in while I'm already in school, get it done quicker. I was already taking student loans out. I was already in school. So the benefit was already, it just seemed like an easy yes for me. But definitely do your homework. That's my recommendation to students. If you're looking, you're considering, do your homework, figure out, okay, what are the costs? What are the logistical things? Do they allow pharmacy credits to transfer? Does that reduce the cost of tuition? How many credits do they transfer? And because again, you're not doing a standalone curriculum. So they should allow that transfer credit or credit transfer, which would truncate your how many classes you have to take to finish the program, which again should reduce your tuition costs. So there are a lot of benefits and intricacies. And then you also have scholarships and grants that your program should offer. Definitely recommend looking into that. When you apply as a pharmacy student to MPH programs, you open up your pool of scholarships for sure. Your particular program, your school might offer them. There may be some external opportunities. But definitely they do exist. And so that does help with the financial burden that may come with it.
A PharmD alone allows you to be so marketable in a plethora of areas of healthcare, but tackling on a master's in public health just completely expands how you can market yourself. Circling back to you being confident about your ROI, does that mean, Ashley, that pharmacists who have dual degrees might have a higher salary?
I'm gonna put my best guess on and say, yeah, it does. It does. So again, adding an MPH to your PharmD, it doesn't always immediately guarantee a higher salary, but this is what I will promise you. If the workforce, when they see a PharmD MPH, they immediately see you as a leader. They see that you have leadership skills. They see that you are ambitious. You want to drive impact in some capacity, and that those particular roles allow you to have a higher earning potential. So like I mentioned in my last episode, there's money to be made in pharma. So if pharma is where you want to go, your starting salary would likely be higher than it would be if you worked in a community pharmacy or a hospital pharmacy. But your earning potential also just continues to exponentially grow. For example, for me in pharma, I went from a senior manager to an associate director, and then the next level would be a director. There's my salary and earning potential will increase. So I think that is what opens the door for a higher salary. I will say, if you are a PharmD and you want to pursue an MPH, and but you still have a strong passion for that more individual, direct patient role, the MPH may not bring you that earning potential that you think it will. So if you wanted, if you're practicing or you're a student and you're like, I really love the direct patient care, but I also love the idea and the impact of an MPH, but you still want to go back to those dispensing roles, it may not generate that earning potential that you think it will. So when you're adding on that MPH, it really does open the opportunity to work in these more broader spaces, and that's where you can capitalize on your value and the skill sets that you have in these spaces. The opportunities are endless, but I just wanted to give that caveat. If you find fulfillment in direct patient care, touching the patients, talking to the patients, if that is your lane, the MPH may just be an add-on for you, and it may not give you that potential, earning potential or opportunities that you're looking for.
Yeah, very, very, very wise, Ashley, because someone such as myself would have to consider that.
Yeah.
Of thinking about those things, but I love direct patient care.
Yeah.
Would I be willing to give that up? And then I have this, $60,000 extra degree, and I'm still in the pharmacy,
And that's a question you got to ask yourself. Are you willing to be adaptable and realize, okay, this is going beyond that traditional patient level space, and you're thinking more broader impact, population level? You may not have that direct patient care environment that you're used to or you really enjoy. So
Also, talking about being very marketable, your dual degree puts you in a really good position for fellowship programs. You were, they would probably say is last minute compared to how far out in advance they tell you to be approaching the process.
Yeah.
But because you were switching your where you wanted to go in industry a couple months before fellowship applications were due, you had to, get your life together, snatch it up faster than others might have had to at that time. But you believe that the dual degree helped you still become a competitive fellowship applicant as well.
Absolutely, 100%. Again, not just having the MPH behind my name, I really was able to articulate the value of why the MPH was going to put me in positions and where I saw it being utilized to expand my career. I was able to articulate and connect why I wanted to do pharmacy and public health, and then also pharmacy, public health, and research. So not just having the MPH just to have it, but talking about why I wanted to utilize that degree and solve certain problems and make an impact in a specific way. That's what's made me stand out from other applicants.
And I'm sure that's not going to be any different for if they're just going right into the job force. They need to be able to communicate
Absolutely.
how and why.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can't leave out our practicing pharmacists. So do you have any last words of advice for pharmacists? They already have their PharmD and they're like, man, I think I want to do something else, but it might require me going back and getting that extra degree.
Yeah, definitely can't leave those folks out. If you have hit that place where you're like, you know what, I think I want to do something different. You've made an impact you've made a difference in your community as a clinical pharmacist, and you want to do something bigger, broader, different. Yeah, I would say start looking at those programs. You being a practicing pharmacist does give you a leg up in terms of just understanding some of the ways of thinking, ways of working. So like if you want to pursue health policy, or if you want to do more population, people structured curriculum, as a clinical pharmacist, you have those experiences. And so now it's just kind of shifting into, okay, this is different, but this is going to be impactful for me if I want to shift into a different career space. So if you're curious, you want to, and you're okay with shifting from direct patient care to more of a broader scale, working in those different roles, then I say, go for it and apply. And likely, online would probably be best. Likely if you're working or you have a family, online will probably be a bit more seamless and easier.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you have that degree, you may also be able to go straight into the workforce, depending on where you want to go. Is it, medication therapy management programs? Is it nonprofit? Is it, government agencies? You have the experience, you have the exposure already. You've been in the workforce. And so you do have a leg up in comparison to students who kind of are still very early in their educational career. So don't let the fact that you've been working or you don't have an MPH with your PharmD hinder you from making that shift, because there's something for everybody out there, especially if you have a PharmD.
Yes. And to follow up on that, are there certifications that they can take? Maybe they don't have to do a full, grad program. Maybe there's certification programs, courses on Coursera or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Do they have these available to them as well?
My short answer would be yes, they should. I would definitely just start looking into, what are certificate programs available for, if you're interested in, I don't know, biostats or, health policy or population health. I would start there, and then, connect with people on LinkedIn who are working in those spaces and start asking those questions. And then, yeah, I do believe that there's some certification programs out there where if you don't want to do the full responsibility of going back to school, the investment, the time, the resources, I'm pretty sure there's some certification programs available too.
All right, Ashley. Well, I feel like we hit just about everything, focusing on a completely different topic, but still relevant to who you are and how accomplished you are and why you are just doing your thing right now. So I thank you.
Thank you for having me. And again, if people want to reach out, please do on LinkedIn. Happy to be a resource and answer any additional questions you may have if you're considering an MPH, considering pharma, considering health policy. Happy to, answer additional questions.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We want you to stay blessed and stay curious, and we are out. You just watched an episode of Pharmacy Pathways, a podcast created to help current and future pharmacists find their happy place in life. I'm your host, I'm the Pharmacist, and I interview different pharmacists from various careers, asking them the questions you'll likely need answered in order to know if that particular role aligns with your interests, passions, skill sets, and talents. If there's a specific topic or career you'd like to see featured, you can let me know by filling out the audience feedback survey on my website. And if you'd like to be a guest, there's a guest sign-up form on my website as well. Both of those links are in the episode description. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed and stay curious. I'm out.